Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! I've always been a pushover. Growing up, I was a kid who'd lend out my favorite toys and never get them back. In high school, I was the one who'd stay up all night helping friends with their projects while neglecting my own. By the time I entered university, this people-pleasing habit was deeply ingrained in me. That's how I ended up in a relationship with him. Let's call him Tom. We met at a campus event, bonding over our shared love for superhero shows and movies. Tom was charming, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about me. At least, that's what I thought at first. As weeks turned into months, I started noticing little things. Tom would often make plans and cancel at the last minute. He promised to help me with my assignments, but would conveniently forget. When I bring up these issues, he brushed them off or turned it around on me, making me feel like I was being too demanding. Despite these red flags, I stayed. I convinced myself that relationships required compromise and that I was being too sensitive. Looking back, I realized I was just afraid of being alone. One of the few things we consistently enjoyed together was watching TV shows. We'd often sync up on Discord and binge watch entire seasons. It was during one of these marathon sessions that we discovered The Boys. The show's dark take on superheroes captivated us both. We eagerly awaited each new episode. When season 3 was announced, we were beyond excited. We made plans to watch it together just like we had with the previous seasons. Little did I know this would be the beginning of the end for us. The day the first couple of episodes premiered, I was itching to watch them, but Tom was busy with work for a few days, so I forced myself to wait. It wasn't easy, especially with social media buzzing about the new season, but I managed to avoid spoilers. Finally, after 2 days of waiting, Tom was free. But of course, that was the day I had to go to university to finish some group assignments. I asked him if he could wait until evening when I'd be back. He agreed, and I was excited as I headed to campus. I rushed through my work, eager to get back home and start watching. As soon as I walked through my door, I messaged Tom. "Hey, I'm home. Ready to start watching?" "Oh, about that. What's wrong?" "I kind of already watched the episodes." "What? Why? We were supposed to watch them together." "I couldn't wait. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? I waited 2 days for you." "Come on, don't be such a witch about it." His words hit me like a slap in the face. Not only had he broken our plans, but he had the audacity to insult me for being upset about it. I felt anger bubbling up inside me, but years of being a doormat had conditioned me to swallow my feelings. "You're right. I'm sorry for overreacting." "It's fine. We can still watch the next episode together when it comes out." I agreed, but something had changed. For the first time in our relationship, I didn't feel like forgiving and forgetting. I wanted payback. Over the next few days, I acted like everything was normal. I was extra nice to Tom, making him think I had gotten over the incident, and meanwhile I was plotting my revenge. The next episode we were supposed to watch together was Herogasm. Anyone who's a fan of The Boys knows this was the most anticipated episode of the season. Tom and I had made plans to watch it together the day after it aired. The episode was set to release at 3:45 a.m. in our time zone. That night, I set my alarm and stayed up. As soon as the episode dropped, I started watching. It was everything the fans had hoped for and more. But the real highlight was a fight scene between Homelander and Butcher. It was a moment everyone had been waiting for since the show began. As soon as that scene came on, I paused the video and took a screenshot. Then I went to WhatsApp and changed my story settings so only Tom could see it. I posted the screenshot with a vague caption. "Oh my god, it's happening." Then I waited. At around 8 a.m. Tom's message came through. "Good morning." "Morning." I knew he always checked my WhatsApp stories first thing in the morning. It was only a matter of time. "What the hell?" "What's wrong?" "You watched Herogasm without me?" "Oh, that? Yeah, I couldn't resist. It's not a big deal, right?" "Are you kidding me? You ruined the biggest moment of the season." "Don't be such a witch about it." There was a long pause before Tom replied. "You did this on purpose, didn't you?" "Now you know how it feels." "This is different. That was just the first couple of episodes. This was Herogasm." A broken promise is a broken promise. Maybe next time you'll think twice before being so selfish. You're unbelievable. I can't believe you'd stoop this low. I learned from the best. After that, things were never the same between us. The trust was broken and neither of us could pretend everything was okay anymore. A month later, we broke up. It was messy and painful, but also liberating. As I watched season 4 of The Boys this year, I couldn't help but remember this incident. I shared the story with a friend and we had a good laugh about it. But it also made me reflect on how much I've grown since then. I am no longer the doormat I used to be. I've learned to stand up for myself and to surround myself with people who respect me. And while I don't condone pettiness or revenge, I can't deny that this incident was a turning point for me. I'm a single mom of twin boys. They are 18 months old and the light of my life. Their dad bailed when he found out I was pregnant with twins, said he wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. Well, neither was I. But here we are. I work as a nurse at the local hospital, pulling double shifts to make ends meet. My mom helps out when she can, but she's got her own life. It's not easy, but we manage. The stroller was a gift from my co-workers when the boys were born. It's one of those fancy double strollers that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I felt guilty accepting it, but they insisted. You'll need it. They said that. They weren't wrong. So there I was at the mall on my day off. The boys needed new shoes and I needed to get out of the house. We were headed to the food court for lunch when it happened. I heard her before I saw her. A shrill voice cutting through the mall's ambient noise. "Excuse me." "Hey, you!" I turned around thinking maybe I'd dropped something. That's when I saw her. A woman in her mid-30s. "That's a nice stroller you've got there." "Oh, thanks. It was a gift." "I bet it was expensive." "I think so. My coworkers got it for me." "Well, I need it." I blinked. Sure, I'd misheard her. "I'm sorry, what?" "I said I need that stroller. My twins are due next month and I can't afford one of those fancy double strollers." "I'm sorry, but this is my stroller. I'm using it." "Look at you. You're young. You probably work at some fast food joint. I bet you can easily buy another one." I was speechless. The audacity of this woman was unbelievable. "Ma'am, I'm a nurse. I work hard for what I have. This stroller was a gift. It's not for sale." "Don't be selfish. I need it more than you do. My husband lost his job, but we're struggling." "I'm sorry to hear that, but that doesn't mean you can have my stroller, especially not with my children in it." I started to walk away, hoping that would be the end of it. I was wrong. Suddenly, I felt a sharp tug. The stroller jerked forward, nearly pulling me off my feet. The boys started crying. "If you won't give it to me, I'll take it myself." Before I could react, she was running, pushing my stroller, with my babies away from me. For a moment, I stood there frozen in disbelief. Then adrenaline kicked in. I sprinted after her, my heart pounding in my ears. "Stop! Those are my babies." She was fast, I'll give her that, but I was faster. Months of chasing after two toddlers had kept me in shape. I caught up to her near the mall exit. Without thinking, I launched myself at her, tackling her from behind. We both went down hard, and the stroller tipped. But thankfully, the safety straps kept the boys secure. I scrambled to my feet and shoved her away from the stroller. She stumbled back, her eyes wild with rage. "You crazy witch! I need that stroller, and I need you to stay away from my children." She lunged at me again, but this time I was ready. I sidestepped her attack and she fell face first onto the hard tile floor. In a moment of fury I am not proud of, I stomped on her face. Not hard enough to do serious damage, but enough to make her think twice about getting up again. By this time a crowd had gathered, mall security arrived, followed closely by the police. They've been called by another shoppers who'd witnessed the whole thing. "Ma'am, are you alright? What happened here?" a security guard asks me. "This woman tried to steal my stroller with my babies in it." Karen muffled through her hands covering her face. "She attacked me. I want her arrested." A witness says, "That's not true. We all saw what happened. This lady stole the stroller and ran off with it." The police took statements from several witnesses while paramedics checked on my boys. They were scared but unharmed. I held them close, still shaken from the ordeal. "Ma'am, can you tell us what happened?" a police officer asks. I recounted the whole story, from her initial demand to the chase and tackle. "And you stomped on her face?" Yes, I was angry and scared. She tried to take my babies. I understand. Given the circumstances, we're not charging you. But please, in the future, try to let us handle these situations. Karen was arrested and led away in handcuffs, still yelling about how she deserved the stroller more than I did. As the excitement died down, an older woman approached me. Are you and your boys alright, dear? Yes, thank you. We're okay. I saw everything. You were so brave. Here, take this. She pressed something into my hand. It was $100 bill. Give those boys some ice cream. They deserve it after all that excitement. I tried to refuse, but she insisted. Other people started coming up to me, offering words of support and even more money. By the time we left the mall, I had over $500 in my pocket and a renewed faith in humanity. Later that night, after the boys were asleep, I sat on my couch, replaying the day's events in my mind. I felt a mix of emotions: anger at the woman who tried to take my children, gratitude for the kindness of strangers, and a fierce pride in myself for protecting my babies. I realized that being a single mom had made me stronger than I ever thought possible. Sure, life was hard sometimes, but I was capable of handling whatever came my way, even if that meant tackling entitled people in the middle of a shopping mall. As I drifted off to sleep, I made a mental note to buy a small can of pepper spray just in case, because while I hope I never had to deal with another situation like that, I'll always be ready to protect my boys, no matter what. Back in college, I was a Spanish major. I loved the language, the culture, everything about it. But there was this one guy in my class who really got under my skin. Let's call him Mr. Arrogant. He could barely string two Spanish words together, but he acted like he was God's gift to the language department. One day in class, our professor asked us to introduce ourselves in Spanish. When it was my turn, I stood up and said, in Spanish, of course, "Hello everyone, my name is X, and I'm studying Spanish because I love Latin culture." I went on to talk about my favorite Spanish authors and my plans to study abroad. The professor nodded approvingly, then it was Mr. Arrogant's turn. He said, in Spanish, I like tacos. The whole class tried not to laugh, but did that stop him from being a jerk? Nope. He constantly interrupted others, make fun of their accents, and act like he was better than everyone else. I couldn't stand him. Fast forward 10 years, I'd worked my butt off, became fluent in Spanish, and landed a job at a big international company. I was working with clients all over South America, translating documents, interpreting calls, and the works. I loved it. One day, my boss called me into his office. We're looking to hire another Spanish speaker. Since you're our resident expert, we'd like you to conduct a language proficiency interview. Can you do that? Absolutely, I'll be happy to help. I was excited. It was a chance to help the company and put my skills to good use. Little did I know what was coming. The day of the interview arrived, I was sitting in the conference room, reviewing the candidate's resume. It said they were bilingual in English and Spanish. Great, I thought. Then a door opened and in walked Mr. Arrogant. For a second, we just stared at each other. I could see the color drain from his face as he recognized me. I kept my cool, but inside I was doing a happy dance. Please have a seat. Shall we conduct this interview in Spanish? Sure. I could see him sweating already. This was going to be good. I say in Spanish, well, tell me about your work experience. He says in Spanish, my job is good. It was painful to watch. He stumbled through every question, mixing up verb tenses, using the wrong words, and barely making sense. I kept a straight face, but inside, I was cackling. Your resume states that you're bilingual. Can you tell me about your Spanish education? Oh, I majored in Spanish in college. Interesting. And have you had the opportunity to use Spanish in your professional life? Yeah, totally. All the time. I raised an eyebrow. This guy hadn't improved one bit since college, and here he was lying through his teeth. Well, let's move on to a role play scenario. Imagine I'm a client calling with a complaint about a product. Please respond appropriately in Spanish. What followed was a massacre of the Spanish language. He mixed up complaint to his compliment, told me he was happy my product was broken, and somehow managed to insult my mother. I had to bite my lip to keep from laughing. After about 30 minutes of this torture, I decided to put him out of his misery. Thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. Mr. Arrogant practically ran out of the room. I sat there for a moment, savoring the sweet taste of karma. Then I went to my boss's office. How did it go? Let's just say we should keep looking. I didn't mention that I knew the guy. I didn't have to, his lack of skills spoke for itself. A week later, I heard that Mr. Arrogant had been fired from his current job. Apparently, they'd found out he'd been lying about being bilingual and had been using online translators for all his Spanish work. Looking back, I realized how much that experience in college had pushed me. Dealing with Mr. Arrogant's attitude had made me work harder, determined to prove that I could master the language. And in the end, that hard work paid off. My parents have been hesitant about letting me learn to drive, always saying I was too immature or irresponsible. But after months of begging and promising to improve my grades, they finally caved in. The day I got my learner's permit was one of the happiest of my life. I couldn't wait to hit the road and feel the freedom that came with being behind the wheel. However, my excitement was short lived when my parents announced they'd enrolled me in the strictest driving school in town. It's for your own good, my mom had said. We want to make sure you learn properly and safely. I couldn't argue with that logic, but I still felt a twinge of disappointment. I'd hoped to learn from my dad cruising around town in his old pickup truck. Instead, I was stuck with a professional instructor who had a reputation for being a stickler for rules. On the first day of driving school, I met my instructor. He was a middle-aged man with a permanent frown etched on his face. He introduced himself as Ryan and immediately launched into a lecture about the importance of road safety. Now listen up. Driving is a serious responsibility. One mistake can cost lives. I expect you to follow my instructions to the letter. Is that clear? Yes, sir. Good. Let's begin with the basics. We'll start in the parking lot. As we walked to the car, I couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was it, my first real driving lesson. The car was a standard sedan, nothing fancy, but to me, it might as well have been a sports car. We got in and Ryan began explaining the controls. I listened intently, determined to prove to him and my parents that I could be responsible. After going through the basics, he instructed me to start the car. Alright, now we're going to practice parking. I want you to pretend the lot is full and park the car. I looked around the empty parking lot confused. It was early morning and there wasn't a single car in sight. I understood the concept. He wanted me to be careful and precise as if there were other cars around. But something in me couldn't resist the opportunity to be a bit cheeky. Slowly, I began to drive around the parking lot. I cruised up one lane and down another, making sure to check my mirrors and signal at every turn. Ryan remained silent, probably thinking I was just being extra cautious. After about 5 minutes of this, I could see him getting antsy. His frown deepened and he started tapping his fingers on a dashboard. Still, I kept driving, maintaining a slow, steady pace. Finally, he couldn't take it anymore. What are you waiting for? Park the car. I couldn't help but smile as I replied, You told me to pretend the lot is full. For a moment, Ryan looked like he was about to explode. His face turned red and I thought I was in for a serious scolding. But then something unexpected happened. His expression changed. The anger faded, replaced by a look of realization, and then surprisingly, amusement. Just park the car. I complied, smoothly pulling into a spot and turning off the engine. To my surprise, Ryan was actually smiling. Well, I have to hand it to you. You followed my instructions perfectly, even if it wasn't quite what I meant. But let's be clear. From now on, when I tell you to park, you park. Got it? Got it, sir. From that moment on, my relationship with Ryan changed. To the better, of course. He seemed to appreciate my sense of humor. Years later, whenever I find myself in an empty parking lot, I can't help but smile and think of Ryan. And occasionally, just for old time's sake, I'll drive around for a few minutes before parking, pretending the lot is full.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.